Hello, dear friends. I am light, and I come from the light, where the light originated. Opinion piece. I come from the light. Nothingness would be the origin of being. All souls come from the light. Insanity is the decision to harm. Sanity is the return to the origin of self. The clean of heart shall inherit the earth. The normal state of a being is its externalisation. Every honest soul has protection from the angles. Our spiritual nature is the ultimate truth. Let's start. In my opinion, everything proceeds from nothingness, understood not as the absence of something, but as a manifested being. When the self decided to manifest in order to know itself, it gradually became densified in different dimensions, and as it became densified, it degraded until it reached the maximum densification of present materialism, which would be an illusion called Maya or Matrix. Sanity is the ability to evaluate important things in life. The ultimate sanity would be the return to the origin of the self, which is light. Prudence, wisdom, and good judgment are the virtues of not making mistakes. Insanity would be the conscious determination to harm other beings and is a path of self-destruction that delays evolution and leads to suffering and involution. Definition. Nothingness in Chinese Taoist philosophy is identified with the concept of Uji, which is defined as the primordial state of the undifferentiated universe, prior to the existence of anything. Non-being is identified with the Tao, and is therefore considered the origin of all things. In Hindu philosophy, nothingness is described as nothing, and in turn the all that gives rise to everything. It is to say, Brahman without qualities. In Buddhist philosophy, the concept of nothingness is related to the concept of sunyata, translated as emptiness or voidness. Nothingness is defined as the absence and non-existence of any object. The state of nothingness is the absence of location, and the absence of matter, energy, space, and time. The condition of nothingness is the absence of anything, no time, no space, no energy, and no thought. Parmenides describes being as all that there is or exists in general. Being has the capacity to be in a place or situation. The condition of being is the capacity and ability of an individual to be, as well as the identity, category, and attitude that the being assumes with respect to other beings. It is also the quality bestowed or imposed upon you by other beings. Liberation. The most normal liberated state of a spirit is his conscious externalization 1 meter behind the head, when he becomes aware of himself, independent of the physical body. He then knows that he is not a body and gains certainty about himself. In that position, one can see the body and control it at a distance. The soul then becomes an evolved spirit from the body state to the externalized spirit state, which manifests in the aura of the saints. In such a state, one becomes certain of oneself as being, and becomes a cause of a life including matter, energy, subjective and objective space, and time in one's own and others' universes. Who doesn't desire such a wonder? Creation. The first chapter of Genesis says, "In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth." But the Essence book of creation says something quite different. In quotes, "Without beginning, the law creates thought and life." According to that book, light is the eternal cosmic ocean of thought and cosmic consciousness, and it is the humankind's consciousness as an individualized part of the eternal cosmic ocean of thought. This consciousness is the foundation of the universe and governs all manifestations of life. The book of creation of the Rig Veda, the oldest book of India, says that in the beginning, in quotes, "there was no death then, nor was anything immortal, that without breath, breathed by its nature. Apart from it there was nothing. All that existed was empty and formless." Close quotes. What is the use then of thinking of nothingness? It is simply the way back to the origin of being. There are three paths that lead to truth. The first is the path of consciousness. The second is the path of nature. And the third is the path of culture, which we receive in the form of the great masterpieces of all ages. The first is the inner path followed by the great mystics. The second is the outer path followed by science. And the third is the study of the wisdom handed down by universal culture, which is degraded in dogmatic theology when every text is analyzed verbatim instead of grasping the allegory. Spiritual nature. Who we really are, according to Peter B. Mayer, is hidden from us. Our spiritual nature is our unique and true origin. That is why the powers of the dark side spend so much time and money to make us forget everything. They use subtle techniques to hold our minds captive. That is where the real magic lies. If you cannot see this in time, you are defeated. It is all illusion. Soon people will discover their true origin, who and what we are, and what is really happening. Many of the mysteries of our planet are related to artifacts thousands of years old, such as, among others, the clay tablets found and translated, which, among other things, describe the apparent positions of the planets Venus and Saturn, with their 7 satellites. What was apparently observed in ancient Babylon without a telescope? At the end of the 19th century, Sumerian was recognized as the original language and translations began. Despite pre-existing knowledge, the general public still knows very little about this first great humankind civilization that emerged abruptly in Mesopotamia. It is intriguing to know more about it. Civilization 6,000 years old, originally known to later Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans. Sumerian tablets. This information is recorded in Sumerian cuneiform writing. Papyrus scrolls from other ancient empires deteriorated over time, or were deliberately destroyed by war and fire. Cuneiform writing was scratched onto wet clay tablets with a stylus from which a wedge-shaped script emerged. These tablets were then dried, fired, and stored in large libraries. Since then, 500,000 of these tablets have been found and have provided researchers with valuable knowledge about the Sumerians. Even today, many of these tablets have not been translated, as their volume is beyond the capacity of a handful of expert translators. The knowledge of the universe at this time is astonishing and bewildering. The concept of spherical astronomy suddenly emerged in summer, including the 360-degree circle, the celestial arc, the horizon, the celestial axis, the poles, the ecliptic, the phenomena of day and night, and so on. Sumerian knowledge of the movement of the sun and moon gave rise to the world's first calendar, which was used for centuries by the Semites, Egyptians, and Greeks. Advance. Although there seems to be no solution to this situation, the energy is building up for the necessary advancement of humankind. One day, which no one can predict, totally unexpectedly, the full extent of the lies will come to light and will be perceived by the masses, who will realize that they have been cheated. The souls now incarnated on our third-dimensional planet have forgotten who they are, where they came from, and what they came here to do. That is the rule of this 3D school, for that is exactly what learning is, creating something while the soul is subject to the veil of forgetfulness. All souls come from the light, even those who have been in other worlds of testing and reconciliation before, long before entering 5D and higher dimensions. Remember that only a fractal of an exalted soul can descend into third-dimensional worlds, for there is much risk of becoming trapped in low-frequency territory. Protection. The divine plan for Earth will be fulfilled regardless of the actions of the humankind, for he who commands, commands. Humankind plays only the role of a tenant in this planetary house. All souls incarnated here are in transit. Their stay here, though it may last over 1,000 incarnations, must be limited to the period of time specified in the blueprint of creation. When the period of reconciliation and testing in this earthly school is completed, at that time all the lessons required from the instructions of these souls are concluded. At that time there is no longer an incarnated soul who has not had all the opportunities offered during successive incarnations. This justifies the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new age. The time has come and the transition is accelerating every day. Each soul is an individual consciousness, but somehow each soul has learned what it is to live, survive, create, and progress in a third-dimensional world, subject to the veil of forgetfulness and all the experiences of material life. To evolve ethically and morally despite the temptations of many shortcuts in life. Life goes on, contrary to what we have been taught. Only the physical body suffers the known death. The soul, with its etheric body, moves beyond the grave to the astral belts of Earth, according to the frequency at the time of disincarnation. Freed from the weight of matter, the consciousness expands sufficiently to remember previous lives in the physical world, and also envisions a future sufficient to provide in detail the events to come, to chart a new plan of incarnation. The wheel of karma. The wheel of samsara has existed since souls first arrived here. After the planetary transition, which is now in its final phase, there will be no need for disincarnation, for the soul will consciously remember everything, both its paths in previous lives and worlds, and will also know the future within a given future time. Even under the veil of forgetfulness, divine providence has never failed those souls who have chosen to experience the Earth School. Everyone during sleep, imperceptibly, is always in contact with other souls, with other worlds, and with their selfless spirit guides. Yes, your work, studies, and teachings will be guided and seated during your sleep in the coming days, but much more than you can imagine. But there is one fact of which few yet know the details, namely where and what you will do during the dream. It has been said in previous texts that everything is affinity, either by vibration or by frequencies. Isn't that how people gather in groups during the day or even at night? But when they are awake, it is not different that when they sleep. For it is not the body that learns the lessons, but the soul that is in that body. And those who indulge in evil deeds cannot even imagine where their soul goes while they sleep. If they knew a comma of it, they would be horrified. Evil is also a science, so is good, for it is but the other polarity of good. It is there that each incarnate becomes even more specialized in the practices that are performed in daily life. On the other hand, those who are engaged in the practices of good deeds also come to those same places of instruction in what they enjoy during the day. They are instructed and supported by legions of good spirits and angels and archangels. Protection. Every honest soul has the protection of the angels. At no time is the good soul helpless, so that it has the courage, the faith, the determination, and the resolve to follow the path of ascension. In these unconscious encounters, he is nudged, guided, comforted, and instructed not to give up, while those who indulge in evil deeds have corresponding instructions to perfect the evil they practice. The writers seek guidance to stand firm in their ascension. Only ascension will free the soul trapped in the world of atonements and trials. The way home is mandatory after assimilating all the lessons learnt here. That is the rule of this school for souls, and each of them knew and accepted the curriculum given to them before they accepted the third dimensional experience. Forgetting the past, both from lives here on earth and in other worlds before, gives each soul the opportunity to gain and live the experience required for each incarnation. This is the secret that we have not yet unlocked. It is necessary to trust the divine plan, and above all, understand that everything is offered to us, even learning while we sleep. Understand that while you sleep, each one will hear his teachers in the astral of earth. Each one provides himself with what he wants, but above all, be aware that you enjoy the protection of the angels. I am Viral Frosy, and my mission is enlightenment. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.